Welcome back to The World Today. We're here in Nigeria just a day after a terrible bombing in Abuja which killed at least 75 people. Reports say scores of girls have been abducted in an attack on a school in Borno State. A gunman reportedly arrived at the school in Chibok late last night and ordered the hostel's teenage residents onto lorries. Parents told international media, the BBC's House of Service, that at least 200 girls had been abducted. The attackers are thought to be from the Islamist group Boko Haram. The attack on the hostel in Chibok was confirmed by police, although they had no confirmation of the abductions. Boko Haram has been waging an armed campaign for an Islamic state in northern Nigeria. A group emerged as a critic of a Western-style education, and its militants frequently target schools and educational institutions. An Italian court has ruled that former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi must perform a year's community service in a home for the elderly. A sentence followed his conviction last year for tax fraud in connection with the purchase of TV rights by his firm Mediaset in the 1990s. Mr Berlusconi's lawyers said they were satisfied with the ruling that would allow him to remain politically active. The 77-year-old billionaire has been embroiled in a string of court cases. He was spared prison in the Mediaset case because the Italian legal system is lenient with those older than 70. To an update now on the missing Malaysian flight MH370, a robotic submarine deployed to search for the plane, a missing plane that is, in the southern Indian Ocean, has had its first mission cut short. The Bluefin 21 was sent to search the seafloor for wreckage after signals believed to be consistent with black box flight recorders were detected. But the drone exceeded its operating limit of 4,500 meters and was brought back to the surface. It was due to return later today if weather conditions permitted. Flight MH370 went missing on March the 8th with 239 people on board. It was flying from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing when it lost contact with air traffic controllers over the South China Sea. Malaysian officials believe, based on satellite data, that it ended its flight thousands of kilometers off course in seas west of the Australian city of Perth. Nicaragua has been placed on an extreme red alert, the highest possible after the country was hit by a series of tremors. Nicaraguans were asked to sleep outdoors, and seismologists warned of the possibility of a powerful earthquake rocking the Central American country. Officials say the recent tremors had reactivated a fault which caused a devastating earthquake in 1972. Between 5,000 and 10,000 people were killed in that disaster. The government's agency in charge of disaster preparedness, SINAPRED, says it is getting ready for a catastrophe of major proportions. Soldiers have been erecting field hospitals, and the Red Cross has urged people to donate blood to replenish the country's blood banks, as some people consider to be at high risk either because of their age or because they live in houses at risk of crumbling have been moved to shelter. Well, it's been a year since the Boston Marathon bombing, which left 3 people dead, 264 others injured. Memorial ceremonies are held in U.S. cities of Boston to mark the anniversary of the deadly bombing at last year's marathon. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden and Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick will attend a tribute at the Heinz Convention Center at midday U.S. time. A flag-raising ceremony and silence will later be held at the finish line.
It was the worst bombing of U.S. soil since security was tightened after the attacks of September 11, 2001, and it occurred on a day when tens of thousands of spectators packed the streets to watch the world-famous race. One of the brothers, Tamerlan Tsarnaev, died after a gunfight with police while he and his brother were trying to flee Boston several days after the attack. His younger brother, Joko Tsarnaev, is awaiting trial on charges that could lead to the death penalty if he is convicted. Many runners were heading for the finish when a fireball and smoke rose from behind cheering spectators and a row of flags representing the countries of participants. Video from the scene showed the cheers turned to screams and panic. The bombs killed 3 spectators: Martin Richard, 8, Crystal Campbell, 29, and Chinese national Liu Lingzi, 23. Prosecutors charged that the Tsarnaev brothers shot dead a 4th man, 27-year-old Massachusetts Institute of Technology campus police officer Sean Collier, a few days later, in a failed attempt to steal his gun as it tried to flee the city. 1 year later, the Boston Marathon's finish line was installed on Monday, April the 14th, a day before the anniversary of the bombings that killed 3 people and injured more than 260.
Such a tribute to the people who got injured and the people that passed. It's such a great event, and we're just proud to be here.
Usually, the finish line is removed the day after the marathon, but because of the bombings last year, the finish line was removed a week later with blood still remaining.
Usually we take it down the day after, but we had to wait another week. So we had to come in there, we had to check in with the FBI, and we had to put booties on and gloves. And you can see the blood splatterings, and it was difficult.
Hopkinton Police Chief Ed Lee said security had been ramped up and asked that the public remain vigilant.
Well, obviously, security's been ramped up quite a bit, and our officers, while I'm sure they've always been vigilant in the past, they're just going to be a little bit extra vigilant out there, and hopefully we can get that same for the public too. If you see something, you say something. The backpacks won't be allowed, and we'll have plenty of security checking people for items, and I think people have enough common sense to know not to bring certain things, and if they do, then we'll deal with it in an orderly fashion. We have a great plan, and I don't think it's going to be a big issue.
Tamerlan and Joko Tsarnaev, 2 brothers who lived in the Boston area, are suspected of planting pressure cooker bombs near the race finish line last April 15.
Jordanian ambassador to Libya has been kidnapped in the capital, Tripoli. Libya's foreign ministry confirmed Fawaz al-Eaton's kidnapping, adding that his driver is in hospital. Jordan's prime minister says the envoy's release is being negotiated in the meantime. Libya has been plagued by instability since armed groups toppled Muammar Gaddafi from power in 2011. On Sunday, Libya's newly appointed Prime Minister Abdullah al-Thani stepped down after what he described as a cowardly attack on him and his family by a militia. Mr. Thani had been appointed as Prime Minister after his predecessor, Ali Zaidan, was sacked for failing to improve security. Meanwhile, the crisis in South Sudan continues. Rebel forces say they've recaptured the oil hub of Bentiu from the government. Their spokesperson, Brigadier General Lal Rua, said oil companies should halt operations immediately and evacuate their staff within a week. But an army spokesperson denied Bentiu had fallen, saying fighting is still continuing. The 2 sides have repeatedly accused each other of violating a ceasefire signed in January. More than 1 million people have been displaced in the conflict, which broke out about a month earlier after South Sudan's President Salva Kiir accused his sacked deputy Riek Machar of plotting a coup. Well, there's a lot of preparation going on for Christians as regards Easter. Jews, however, in Israel are not celebrating Easter, but are celebrating the Passover. And they made last-minute preparations for the celebrations, which began at sunset. And this is how the day went.
During the holiday, Jewish believers refrain from eating chametz, all food products that contain leavened wheat and oats.
This is the symbolic burning of the chametz, which is a symbol for all the sins of Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, that we pray to Kadosh Baruch Hu, that all our sins should be burned and go into the Pesach Yontiv with fully purified. Should all have a Chag Kasheva Sameach.
Residents queued with their kitchen utensils and dishes to wash them in boiling water and turn them kosher for the holiday, in which any eating or possession of leavened food is prohibited.
And what you see over here is called Hagalat Kelim, where utensils which are made out of metal primarily, if they have to be absolutely clean, then they can be immersed in boiling hot water, left there for just a moment, and then it's put into another container with cold water, and then you can use that utensil for Pesach. So it's a very busy last-minute preparations, getting rid of all the chametz, burning it all up, and then sitting down to the Seder this evening.
Jews celebrate Passover in memory of the exodus of the Jewish people from slavery in Egypt in ancient times. On the eve of the holiday, families convene to eat a ceremonial dinner, also known as the Seder, in which a special text is read, describing the suffering of the Jewish people in Egypt and their journey in the desert.
So whichever one you're celebrating where you are in the world, happy Easter, happy Passover. That's the world today. Thanks for watching. I am Amarachi Ubani. Sports News is up next.